Okay, so can you all see the screen? Lovely. So just I've gone way ahead. A quick summary of what we'll look through today. So we'll begin by giving you all an opportunity to share some ideas and reflections you have, and particularly think of some challenges you might have come across already when you're thinking about community action and involvement. We'll talk through our new climate action document and how this ties into our theory of change. And then Loz will give you some wonderful examples of the Bristol schools and what they did last year around community climate action. And we'll finish with the breakout rooms for some chances for you to get planning for next year as well. This is a sort of new area that we're developing at Green Schools, and with Loz and Esther last year, we really got to sort of see the best ways for schools to facilitate this climate action in their community, and importantly, make sure that pupils are the leaders and drivers of that as well. We thought it would be really important to hear from you first of all. I think one thing that comes up a lot is the challenge of not only time and capacity, but also building this work into, the work you're doing in lessons, then into the wider community. So it'd be really helpful for us to hear from you. First of all, it'll help us to kind of shape the rest of the session, but also to kind of consider some ways that we can support you going forward. So in the chat, if you could pop some ideas or reflections to these two questions, that would be really helpful. I'll just copy them here as well. What ideas and opportunities do you have to inform and involve parents in the local community? And what could the challenges be to making this happen? So we take a couple of minutes to just note down some ideas for those questions. That would be really helpful. Thank you. And it might be that this is the first time you're kind of starting this work. So one of the challenges is, getting started, and that's completely fine. Everyone's at a different stage when it comes to community involvement in climate sustainability. Yeah, thank you, Laura. So kind of trying to plan lots of things at the same time and doing one big project. Ah, yes, thanks, Matt. So I remember we talked at the beginning about work with partner primary schools, and that was something that you'd like to develop as well. So that's, yeah, I guess also finding the time for that and getting parent involvement, which I'm sure Loz can talk about with Bristol as well, and how we get parents engaged. Oh, thank you, Sam. That's really helpful. So, yeah, seeing some kind of common threads around involving parents. And it's obviously Orchard and Marsh Academy both being secondary schools. I know that can also come with additional challenges. You don't have as much interaction with parents day to day. So we can talk through that as well. And thank you, Laura, for sharing that as well. So feel free to keep popping those ideas in the chat, and we'll talk through those at the end as well. So let's just have a quick look at the kind of ACT stage and where you're up to in the programme. So hopefully you're kind of in the process now of developing your pre-pupil projects. So you can see here on the screen, we've got the project action plan, and that's something that's a really good resource for pupils to develop their projects and design the kind of stages of their projects. And that is a good foundation for community engagement, because you can actually plan at what stages you could do that work as well. Just a quick reminder in terms of where we're up to on the programme. So this week, hopefully you're around kind of if you're a primary school, developing your community project, developing your projects around session 18. If you're a secondary school, you're kind of using that ACT workbook. If you are a little bit behind, don't worry. It's a really busy time, especially I know with SATs and all the kind of assessments coming up. So you can also, if you need to reduce some of the Inspire stages you do at the end and spend a bit more time on your projects. Also, please do get in touch with your cohort leads, or I'll put my email in at the end if you have any questions about the sessions. We had a fantastic few sessions last summer to develop our theory of change, and you might have seen this if you read our impact report, but the area on the right here I want to focus on is our new theory of change around community work, and in particular this long-term impact that we want to have, where schools become community hubs for sustainability and inspire action to address the climate crisis. If you look below that, the kind of outcomes that schools are working with their community to take action on the issues affecting that community. The communities understand more about the climate crisis and what they can do, and pupils and school staff are role models who inspire the community to make changes. So that's the kind of the driving force behind what we're doing at Green Schools Project, why we've kind of brought Esther and Loz in to develop this work, and the work that Loz is doing around the programme as well. So let's look through the Community Climate Action document, which I think is kind of the key additional resource we have for you this year in the schools and on the programme. So if you've got that to hand, I'll post it in the chat again as well. What we have done is basically outlined the process for embedding community action into your programme and into the school community and the pupil projects. So we've kind of broken it into stages, which Loz will talk through quickly when she gives her examples. But one of the areas that we've really kind of developed is how you engage parents and the community. And I think that's something that came out of some of the comments that were put in the chat. So I think what we found really useful in our community work is, starting that work early. So actually surveying or having conversations with parents and carers about what interests them and what needs and concerns they have, and using that to shape the projects that the pupils do. In the community action document, we've actually got a template survey that you can copy and use with your schools, or you can make edits as well, that can also find out if any parents and carers have skills they want to share or have a particular interest they want to get involved with. We've also shared in the document some examples of successful community engagement in Bristol and London, and also pupils who have actually involved their community by talking about their projects, whether that's through a press release and on the radio, creating engaging assemblies, going into primary schools, and some really lovely actual evidence linked in that document that you can look through and use as a model. Another area we have looked at is how to plan this throughout the year. So what we have created, which took me many hours of Canva chaos and editing, is a community climate action calendar. So this is editable and downloadable for you as a school. It has every month of the year, and in the bottom you'll see here we've kind of outlined some useful dates for community events or kind of national or international sustainable and climate-based kind of awareness days or actions that take place throughout the year. Really good opportunities to kind of connect your community work and bring the community into what you're doing. I'm sure a lot of the work that you already do with the school community can be brought into this work as well. So I'm, thinking just there in terms of Refugee Week or Clean Air Day. These are already existing initiatives in lots of schools. So how do we bring in climate sustainability, and how do we involve the community in that as well? At the end of the climate action guide, you'll also see some kind of conversations about how to build networks and use existing organisations and partnerships. So we've got some lovely case studies of that, and Loz will talk about some people she worked with in Bristol. But that takes away some of that, extra work that's needed for staff, because you're bringing in people who are experts and able to drive that work and are doing that work on the ground in the community already, and can offer workshops and kind of practical activities for people to get involved with. At any point, if you have questions about your area in particular and you want to be put in touch, please send us an email and we can, see if we've got any contacts or do some research for you. So Loz, I'll hand over to you now, because I know I've been talking for a long time, just to talk through your work in Bristol and the process that you found useful.
Thank you. Hi everyone. Apologies, I've got a bit of a cold, so I'm sucking on a cough sweet, so sorry. Also, my voice sounds a bit funny. But I will talk through, this kind of process that we've outlined. Now, this is just a rough guide. It doesn't have to look like this. But here's some kind of pointers as to some things you might want to consider in your community work. And to be honest, I think in the comments we've had, pretty much all of this has kind of come up. So obviously, identifying opportunities, needs, and concerns, we've kind of already done some of that. And then community connection. I know there was a comment about working with charities and other kinds of organizations. So just kind of finding out what might be available from, it might be local groups, it could be like national organizations. There's quite a lot out there in terms of workshops or resources that can be drawn upon, or yeah, well, I'll come back to a specific example in the next slide. And then thinking about engaging parents, carers, well, we've got an example survey on that document that we've just been looking at. And you can also use your own sort of mechanisms. I know there's lots of different platforms that are used within schools to communicate with parents and carers. That was also one of the comments about IT does sometimes make it hard. Another alternative would be just stand outside the school gates. I mean, this works more in a primary school, granted, than a secondary school. So it might not work so well with the secondary setting. You don't get so many parent pickups, but I think we've got a photo on there of Esther doing this in London when she was looking to gather sort of parent voice, and she stood outside the school gates at the end of the day at primary schools and encouraged parents to fill in her survey, or just chat to people, of course, is another way. And then the really important one is bringing in that pupil voice and leadership, because at the end of the day, this is all about the kind of pupil-led action, which our programme is designed around. These ACT projects are driven by the pupils, so it's making sure that whatever is being planned in terms of community action is really coming from the pupil projects as much as possible. Obviously, there's some constraints around that in terms of what is logistically possible, and that's where you kind of you have to sort of know the landscape in your own school context as to what might work and what might not. I know there was a comment about trying to go too big too soon, and that can obviously be quite disempowering for pupils, because they can have these big grand ideas, but they don't really know like the limits of what might work, especially in the time frame, which we know is quite short in the grand scheme of things. So I suppose it's looking for quick wins, so looking for things where there's already those opportunities that could be tapped into, like events that are already in the school calendar. So things like summer fairs are fantastic. If you can just get a table at one of those events and put on some sort of activity, so yeah, any kind of like finding those sort of shortcuts basically of like things that would be happening anyway, using newsletters that already exist, but just get your own section within that newsletter. And then yeah, amplifying, I mean, this is kind of all part of it, like any other opportunities. There might be like local publications. I'm just writing something for like a little local magazine that gets put through 14,000 household doors in East Bristol, and it's just really nice for kids to see themselves appearing in those kinds of publications. Or like if there's other media opportunities, we did get a bit of local coverage. In fact, maybe let's go on to the next slide. I'll talk through some of the examples. So yeah, some of the stuff that we were doing in Bristol last year. The first picture there is a workshop that was run in collaboration with a local community organisation that are all about soil and compost, and they have these workshops that they can offer to schools and come and bring the like the big composter and a wormery, and it's really like hands on for the kids, which is really fun. And they like picking up the worms. Well, some of them hate it at first, but by the end they tend to kind of love it. And then the next one, where you can see the pupils on the stage, this was a really cool opportunity where we were invited to bring some pupils to speak to business leaders from across the southwest of England at the Festival of Sustainable Business. And these year 6 pupils, so there were 8 of them, came and stood on that stage. They prepared their own speech. I just gave them a few little prompts. They had all the ideas, and they delivered an amazingly powerful speech to this room full of adults, and they had no fear whatsoever walking out on that stage. And it was really inspiring, and you could tell that it was very impactful, because then all these adults were coming up to them afterwards saying, wow, that was amazing, and asking them questions. And yeah, that was a really cool opportunity. And then we've got a couple of other outdoor workshops that we did, one in collaboration with a hip hop artist who does hip hop gardening workshops, and comes and uses kind of creating rap lyrics as a way to engage young people in nature. So that was really nice. And I think we've got another slide with some more pictures. Thank you. Yeah, so this is, I think, some of Esther's work, isn't it? And I don't know if you want to say any more on that, Bethany, or...
Yeah, so thank you, Loz. That was really lovely to see some of the pictures and kind of be transported back to last summer when we were getting all that through. So yeah, Esther worked in the kind of Newham East London area, and the schools were kind of really keen to build on existing summer fairs and events that were happening. So Esther built some partnerships with Cody Dock, a local nature reserve. I think in the chat someone talked about kind of linking up with nature charities and seeing where there are opportunities. But what was fantastic is that organisation came and did a stall as part of the school fair. So families and students were able to get involved, and students could kind of champion what they'd be doing in their projects. So you can see here there was a plant-based recipe book created in collaboration with a sort of vegan local kitchen, and a swap shop was organised by pupils, so they exchanged things they'd created and made out of waste materials, but also uniform and kind of stationery they wanted to swap. There was also an energy workshop. So one of the surveys that Esther did, which you can download from our climate action guide, one of the things that families had expressed was lots of kind of concern and questions around energy security. So Esther worked to bring in an organisation called HEAL, who do like energy action workshops with the pupils, but also inviting families and community to come along later to that as well. So building those spaces where you can bridge the community and the pupil projects together really successfully. And as Loz said, looking at where this is already happening in school, where you've already got, communications or opportunities to bring the community in. How do we build in that climate sustainability angle, and how do we make sure that it's pupil-led and that the pupils feel they're able to, be the driving force behind that climate action, and be part of that experience as well. So hopefully this will work. I'm going to put everyone in breakout rooms. I've done it effectively, hopefully, based on whether you're a primary or secondary. If you're in the one with a secondary or primary, apologies. I think I was just basing it off schools that I could recognise. But we'll give maybe 10 minutes to discuss these two questions. What community climate action can you plan for summer term 2026? And how could these be linked to pupil projects? It might also be a nice chance to share, some reflections on how the projects are going and any kind of questions you have. If you think of any questions during your breakout room, just make a note of them and we'll have time to talk through at the end. And once that 10 minutes is up, if you could kind of have a summary ready to share with the group. I always feel like when I'm in these meetings and they don't say they're going to do that, I suddenly go, oh, I didn't remember anything anyone said. So it'll be lovely to have a quick reflection at the end as well. So I'll open the rooms now, and me and Loz will try and dip in slightly later on, but we'll give you all a chance to chat, and I will put the questions in the chat as well. Thank you.